And the first point I always make is understand the organization as much as possible. Because if you can speak to the pain points of the organization, if you can show that you have done enough research about the organization, if you show that it will demonstrate that you care enough to have made those researches. So that's the first thing. Let alone when you have now been employed. You are now in the organization and you have a role to perform, and you just run straight into performing that role. You not spend time to understand, because really, if you don't understand the organization, when again to that analysis of why, what, and how, in terms of superiority, you're missing out on the why. Why is superior to what, and what's superior to how? Okay. If you don't know why you're doing it, what you do, you might get it wrong, and how you do it is irrelevant. But if you know why you're doing it, there's a high chance that you select and make the right choices in what to do, and then how to do it become a piece of cake. Okay, so understanding the business drivers, what are the sources of income for the organization? What are its major cost structure? Where it spends its money? How does it operate? What are the considerations of the organization's drive regarding acquiring customers, regarding sales channels, regarding all kind of stakeholders in the organization? You need to understand them, because if you don't, you're making a lot of mistakes in delivering the job that you've been employed to deliver. All right, spend some time to understand the constraints. What are the issues? What are we really dealing with as an organization? Is it capacity issue in terms of space? If you can go to making a lot of mistakes. It's always the talking the job getting is small. We are now too many. We need a bigger space. Spend some time. Nobody has really taken time to look at the optimization of that space. Okay, so it's your first understanding is what exactly is the issue? What are we seeing as a concern? How can I help? Then plan business changes. The organization planning to expand, to create more locations, to employ more people. Sometimes this is not information that is readily available, but if you work in certain organization, you will get a sense of the direction of which you are going to changes. For example, if there are interviews, people are always coming to apply for work and get the interview, you get a sense of, okay, we're entertaining employees or candidates. That means we are most likely expanding, isn't it? If you are beginning to see situations where management is shifting decisions towards acquiring new assets, replacing generators, replacing building new buildings, adding new structures, renting new spaces, you get a sense that there's a drive towards investing in physical infrastructure or facilities. And if the production systems are being upgraded, oh yes, that you get a sense of those business changes because you are observant, you are seeing how things are being done. Then you look at the expense structure, because if you come into a new facility, there's no way, unless you're really not into it, there's no way you won't be able to see a few areas where processes can be adjusted to get better results, steps can be taken to reduce costs, wastage can be trimmed here and there. Will just come unless you've not really invested in what you're doing. So you begin to make such notes because you're basically trying to understand the business requirement, trying to hear what senior management is saying about, you attend meetings, staff meetings, town hall meetings, whatever meetings, HSC meetings. You hear the tone, you hear the language of how things are being discussed. You see the kind of expectations that are being placed on you by your immediate management, right? So somehow there's a trickle down effect of what's happening at the top all the way to your level. At your level, it may just be an overly strict regime for monitoring diesel levels, recording diesel purchase, and make sure everything is accurate, right? But again, that in itself is how cost reduction pressure at the top is affecting you. How issues with reliability, for example, where You know, people can't work because certain things are not available, because power was not provided, water was not provided. You know, but that kind of pressure for a reliable system that works may not come to you all around. May come to you just in the aspect of the work that you do. It's now your job to look above that little bit where the pressure is reaching you, to see the big picture of what's happening to the organization. Probably a mall, you know, for example. And if you are not the type that is very observant, you probably will know that the footfalls are dropping. People who come, all the shops are still open as usual, right? But it looks as if the influx of you know, buyers to the mall is dropping, you know, and can you find a way to have some kind of data to guide you? Because if the visitors to the mall are dropping, there's a high likelihood that the tenants in the mall will start struggling to pay their rent and their service charge, right? Because they're not making the money. Okay, and that goes all the way up. You know, maintenance investments are frozen. New equipment or assets are not delivered, and so on and so forth. You get that sense of what's happening in your organization. It's very important as FMs that we are not we don't behave like ostriches, bury our heads in the sand and say, "Oh, none of that is my business," because it will eventually be your business. The truth is, when the business struggles, when the organization itself struggles, the first place they come after for survival, for trimming of cost, for, you know, whatever, is the FM. You know, and why do they do that? Because one, there's very little communication of the value that facility management provides to the organization. You're always being seen as a spender, someone who costs us money, right? And very little, you know, discussion around the strategic value that you provide. So that's the first area. Second area is that you spend in all directions, and in many instances you are tempted to just, you know, spend recklessly because that's how it's been. We always pay this for this, we always pay that for that. You've not looked for, you know, better ways of getting things done. So you might just end up, you know, being sucked into that rubber effect, or that this is how we do things thing that will make you ineffective in providing value. Because at that point, you're not even seeing how your behavior, how the way things are done is affecting the bottom line. And quite honestly, I mean, if most management staff till today will not be able to link it until there's a major pressure, like a major loss or an economic hiccup that disrupts the bottom line that is so well carefully guided. All of a sudden, attention is paid to the FM, and the FM needs to pay attention to the business and use that attention and information and intelligence that you gather from understanding what the business is trying to do, what their changes and what their concerns are, to adjust how you deliver solutions as an FM. Because at the end of the day, there are always you know, multiple ways to get things done. There are high cost solutions, there are low cost solutions, and there are even no cost solutions. It's just for you to look at the risk of applying which, and how whatever approach or strategy you deploy would align to the business requirements. Bottom line in this first point is, ladies and gentlemen, focus on the organization intently, understand the mood, understand what is happening. Okay. Then site data. Facility managers, you know, I always say you can't manage what you don't know, right? You can't manage what you can't measure, all right? So if you have buildings, you know, grounds, equipment, you know, different types of installations, one location, multiple locations, you need to know exactly what your organization owns, whether it's leased or whether it's owned. You must know the difference. You must know the policies to apply for both options, right? Who sits where? So if I have a building, the corporate office, you know, I can't just, you know, close my eyes or shut my mind out of understanding the numbers of people that come to use the space, the departments, their levels in the organization, the kind of work they do. I need to know the type of occupants, their numbers, how that number has been growing or, you know, depreciating over time. I need to know. Okay, if my facility runs, you know, for a certain number of hours, starts open at this time, work resumes, and work closes at this time, What other activities do I need to perform outside those hours? And how can I manage that extended hours? Because if an office opens 8 and closes 5, for example, and as the FM team, you have to do some work in the evenings, you have to do some work on Saturdays. What is the impact of these extended opening hours? And what advantage are you bringing on in terms of reliability, in terms of not disrupting the main operations, ensuring that that operation of the mission can go on or succeed? The types of spaces you have a sense of what we call space utilization, right? Because it's sometimes oblivious to many faculty managers that you spend so much acquiring a space. The building, the mall, the factory, I mean, every space, every square meter costs money. And then you are not really doing anything about understanding the data around space utilization. How do you work out space utilization? You look at how often the space is used and for how long that space is used. That's a simple formula for understanding utilization. So you begin to get to see certain spaces in organization that are not being used optimally. You begin to see certain spaces that can be used for extended hours. For example, in a parking lot, serving the day for one facility, and being able to serve another facility where there is night activities and so on. You know, understand the preferences of the customers you serve. If I'm dealing with expatriate customers, if I'm dealing with senior management, Nigerian, if I'm dealing with junior staff, if I'm dealing with more female versus more male, there are so many considerations around understanding what's happening in your facility. So in essence, on that side data, understand your facilities. What equipment do you have to manage? And this is basically having an asset register in place. Your asset register details every line item, every component, every equipment, every building component, every furniture and fitting, everything you own and manage in that space. That's in your asset register. Make sure you have an asset register that captures all of that information. Have information on, for leased facilities, for owned facilities, the basic data that should be attached. So lease agreements, for example, supported by as-built drawings, supported by other statutory regulatory documentation, which will be seen in a bit, hopefully in today's lesson. But it's important that you understand your facility and then start understanding the people that use the facility. Know exactly where everybody are in the buildings, get a sense of their routines, just basically know the kind of numbers you have to deal with. So if I'm producing 10,000 liters of water on Monday, and I'm producing the same 10,000 liters of water on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, the numbers, the volume of water I produce does not change, but there's something about Mondays that shows that, half of the staff, they're not in the office, they're probably on field or traveling or doing something or the other. If that's happening, then what makes me use the same amount of water on Monday as well as Tuesday? Some of those questions can start coming out because I have looked at the occupants, I've looked at facilities, and then I have some data I can use to develop some metrics. A simple metric in the case of the water is liters per person per day, for example, getting a sense of how water is used in the facility. The same thing with energy, the same thing with all of the built-in utilities that goes into the facility that you manage. You have to find a way to understand. So beyond the asset register for the facility side, also think about having a condition assessment done. If you already have a condition assessment done at the onset and you have a deferred maintenance log, a document that documents all the defects as they happen, it's very important that you have a clear picture of what's happening in the facility that you manage. If I ask you things like how many kilowatt hours to consume a day in power, how many liters to consume a day per person, per square meter kind of data, what is the cost for cleaning per square meter, it's important that you have some of those information. I'll get to cost in a bit as well. Look at the services you provide. Sometimes you're in the lease facility and the landlord has certain obligation because you're paying certain service charge in addition to your rent to the landlord. But the landlord is not performing those services, and what you have to do was resort to creating your own FM service contract and duplicate that. No, that's a waste of resources. What you need to do is spend time understanding what is to be expected, have a service level agreement agreed with the landlord or his agents, find out why they're not delivering on the services, and ensure that you get value for that money, because you are paying for it. It's very important that you get value for it. Okay. Understand the service providers. You have a network of vendors doing different things. Some of them are in charge of bringing supplies. Some provide different types of services to the facilities. You're not only supposed to know who does what among the fixed routine service contractors and supply contractors, but also have a pool of vendors for your non-recurrent or reactive, what we call the reactive jobs that you need to have, call outs for to come and execute. Understand for you to be able to put a real structure in place to manage vendors, you need to develop service level agreements where service expectations, service minimums, service specifications, scope of service, work procedures, your own organizational procedures and controls, the cost of the service, the performance expectations or performance measurement mechanism built into that contract or that agreement, dispute resolution, conflict management, and so on and so forth. All of that is built into service level agreement for all types of services. So when the contractor is coming on board, you take out a draft service level agreement, you review it to customize it to the scope, and the dimension of the services that this contractor is coming to provide, and then you issue out a service level agreement. And then from there, you have a series of performance management tools that you use to manage such contractors. It's important to know the difference between what their source contractors will do and what your own staff will do. Sometimes you have a contract in place, and yet you are still dealing with the issues in-house. And sometimes you have teams in-house who are just all over the place. Because you have contractors and contractor staff, they've all become bosses themselves and are doing very little. Because at the end of the day, you have to show justification for the resources you have in your department. So you cannot really move them from the both and not day-to-day handling of issues into more strategic roles, doing more analysis, risk management planning, and so on and so forth. Then over time, they become seen as a waste to the organization, and those team members might be cut. All right. Understand the way your organization is structured. These people understand how you need to create a department that aligns with that structure. The FM department is not just like every other department, because we are the ones that have a double alignment requirement. We need to align with the corporate vision, mission, corporate objectives. We also need to have an alignment with business units, vision, mission, and business unit objectives. So in essence, we have to not only interpret what the organization is trying to achieve, we also need to interpret what the business units and other departments are trying to achieve, so that we can provide services that meet the requirements. The bottom line here is not to wait until you are told, I need certain service. You're supposed to spend time and effort understanding what they're trying to achieve, and then coming with suggestions on how what kind of service you can deliver to help them achieve those. And then let's see their inputs and their buying, and have a sealed agreement with them. That's what should happen before you get involved in any service level agreement setting with your vendors or your contractors. So it doesn't help to have a contractor in who is not sure what your users expect of you. You're the one employing the contractor. All he hears is from you. All he should be hearing is actually from billing users and management in the organization. But of course, he cannot talk to all of them at the same time. So you spend time establishing who those service level agreements will be. And then for all the job that you do, ensure that you have segments of work, what we also call scope. There should be an outline for how things are done. What are the boundaries? what will be the incentives and penalties for things being done or not being done, right? Also consider special requirements if you have data centers, if you have laboratories with certain special requirements, like certain pressurized gases that needs to be available, and so on and so forth. And then think about your management. There's usually that need to provide certain perks or privileges to the C-suite. The important thing here is that you want them to be as productive as possible. You don't want them complaining or having issues, with the facilities that you're providing. The next item is costs. You can't provide facility services at any cost. There's usually hello. You can keep that stream running for another 5 minutes while I try to get my slides out of OneDrive. Hello, do you hear me? Hello, guys.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Are we up and running on the other streaming services now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm streaming everywhere.
I'm trying to get my OneDrive to allow me pull out my slides, but it's giving me a bit of a hassle. All right, I'm sure this extra 1 or 2 minutes will enable others to also join. In a minute or a couple of minutes, I should be able to start. Facility, there's no way, unless you're really not into it, there's no way you won't be able to see a few areas where processes can be adjusted to get better results, steps can be taken to reduce costs, wastage can be trimmed here and there. Just come, unless you're not really invested in what you're doing. So you begin to make such notes because you're basically trying to understand the business requirement, trying to hear what senior management is saying about, you attend meetings, staff meetings, town hall meetings, whatever meetings, HSC meetings. You hear the tone, you hear the language of how, things are being discussed. You see the kind of expectations that are being placed on you by your immediate management, right? So somehow there's a trickle down effect of what's happening at the top all the way to your level. At your level, it may just be an overly strict regime for monitoring diesel levels, recording diesel purchase, and make sure everything is accurate, right? But again, that in itself is how cost reduction pressure at the top is affecting you, how issues
we're
with
ready.
reliability, for example, where people can't work because certain things are not available because power was not provided, water was not provided.
All right, I need someone to please confirm if you're seeing the screen I'm sharing.
Yes, sir, we can see it, sir. We can see it.
Thank you very much for that confirmation. All right, I told you we're going to wrap up the facility management strategic planning series today by looking at the strategic plans. These are what I would call the two key strategic plans. Okay, so when you've done all of those interpretation of your organization's mission, vision, and strategic objectives, and you've studied the business units, you understand the direction the business is going, you come up with two plans that we're going to be looking at today. All right, so before we start, for those who are here for the first time, my name is Paul Erubami. I'm a facility manager. I've been training and teaching facility management for more than 12 years. I've worked in facility management for more than 25 years as a professional. And I'm excited to lead the team of Max-Migold, where we have not only trained facility managers in the last few years with training on project management, health and safety, strategic facility management, maintenance management, operations management, and all the other short courses that we've been providing. But we have been rolling out and teaching the facility management diploma, a comprehensive 3 months program that covers the body of knowledge for managing facilities, focused for us on the African continent and across the world, really, because FM is a body of knowledge that is global. The last batch of the FM diploma, which started a couple of weeks ago, we're ending registrations for that class tomorrow. So tomorrow, the 15th of September, is the last day for getting into that class. We are able to, enable people to join the class, 2-3 weeks after we start, because we have recorded, videos of all the classes. We have a learning management system where these videos are displayed with all the materials and the forum for interacting with one another. And we have a fantastic WhatsApp platform for the class where you enjoy interactions with your classmates, and also feedback and suggestions or whatever ideas you have for the training team. So I would say if you are still sitting on the fence, not sure whether you should join the 2023 final batch or wait till 2024, for a new dawn or a new year to start the 2024 batch, I would say the last day for being able to join the 2023 final batch is tomorrow, 15th of September. Okay. What we've also done is, for those who had one concern or the other about money, we understand what the economy is saying now. We have opened and extended our bonus, 100,000 naira bonus, so that you can pay less 100,000 if you are paying full between today and tomorrow. And if you are taking the installment payments, all you need to do is pay a couple of installments and spread the rest over the remaining 4 to 10 months, depending on whether you're taking the 6 months or the 12 months program. So, and then if you're interested in reaching out, the number to call is or send WhatsApp messages to is 080-220-20122. The number again is 080-220-20122. And the website for the FM diploma is promo.facilitymanagementcourses.com. Promo www.facilitymanagementcourses.com. So that's where you get all the information. In fact, the entire facilitymanagementcourses.com website is owned by Max-Migold, and it contains all of our training packages, in there that you can always enjoy or participate in anytime. So whether you want to do virtual program, want to do a short course, or want to take the physical class, please feel free. The schedule is very flexible, and you always find something that suits or work for you. Now back to our launch hour series. We've been doing strategic facility planning. We looked at the big picture. We looked at the building's life cycle. We looked at the critical information and documents that should come out of construction, and then we looked at documents that you should have in place, knowledge you should have before you start managing any facility. We established the strategic facility planning cycle, understanding, analysis, action, understanding, analysis, planning, and action. And so at the end of the act, before you even get to the act phase, by the time you produce the planning, you should have developed certain documentation. That's where we are today. And then we try to put the FM levels into perspective. You can run facility management at the operational level, at the tactical level, and the strategic level. We also compared them in terms of how important they are, the kind of impact you can make from whichever level. So if you are at the operational level, what kind of impact will you make on the entire organization? Low, because decisions taken at the strategic level, which answers why we are doing what we are doing, is what cascades down to the tactical. The tactical is where you have the annual plans, the budgets, so many people just get into FM, and when they start being able to develop a budget, say, oh, we are doing strategic planning, we're looking ahead. That's not deep enough, because the budgets and the project plans and the cap and all the things you're going to do this year to next year are all part of tactical planning. They are not strategic, right? Because they answer to the question, what are we going to do? And when are we going to do it? Who's going to do it? Those kind of questions. How we're going to do it, who's going to do it, mostly answered at the operational level. But why is answered at the level where we talk about the high-level objectives of the organization. So the mission, vision, strategic objective, the culture, the values, and the principles that runs the organization. They will look at milestones the organization has set for its own path to progress as it's moving on in its history. What kind of achievements or accomplishments is it looking forward to? The FM's job is to take that information and not just go straight to, we know where the organization is going to be at this point, we deliver to this level, and then we know where it's going to be at that point, we deliver to that level. No, you don't just start delivering. You also create your own strategic plan. It is based on your strategic plan that you can now say, okay, so what maintenance approaches are we going to adopt? What kind of contracting strategy are we going to adopt? Where are we going to locate? Where are we going to, do we expand? Do we contract? Do we rent? Do we lease? Do we buy equipment? All those big questions happens after we know why we are doing what we are doing. Okay, so once you have spent enough time understanding the organization's high-level strategy, you now see yourself as fully immersed in the organization, just like the people in the C-suite, the directors and the MD and chairman. They are the ones that really have the vision. You've spent enough time understanding what this vision is, understanding that you have done because you have looked historically, look at the data historically, and you can plot, a forecast. This is for the organization. So all of those analyses, what are strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, and all the other things we've done in the analyze and then the going into the planning phase. The whole idea at that level, in fact, still at this level, is to have a full understanding. When we have a full understanding, we now sit back and say, okay, so as a facility management department, real estate department, property management department, whatever organization or department or division, whatever the organization calls it, that unit, that manages the physical facilities, plants, machineries, buildings of the organization will need to sit down and say, let's create a strategic plan. So they start at the level of, which is the highest level of FM strategy, which is called a strategic facility plan. What we call the strategic facility plan is, is a portfolio. It's a set of guidelines or rules that governs how physical facilities are going to be acquired, managed, operated and maintained, and disposed of in the course of the facility that we are managing. So it's important that we understand that. Sorry, 1 second. I need to do a quick. Okay. So we will need to develop a document that guides the entire process. So if we have to have a facility, have a location, what guides how we select the location? Whether we're going to buy, build, or lease or rent, what guides that? What are the long-term objectives, that we must achieve with every site that we acquire, right? So once we do, and then what are the guidelines for site development? What are the benchmarks or performance benchmarks or metrics that every site that we cite, that we create and deploy for the use of our organization must achieve, for us to say we are following this plan? That is the strategic facility plan. It starts with having a statement of facility objectives. If I'm the head of physical facilities in the organization, what are the strategic objectives of facility? What does facility contribute? This is speaking to key performance indicators, which are, critical benefits the organization gets from for the acquisition of its physical facilities. Those are statements of facility objectives. We will speak to things like what are goals regarding productivity, workplace productivity, how we want the workplace to be perceived. Sometimes workplace attracts talents. People you want to work for you may not want to work in the spaces that you have, right? So if we want to use our physical facilities to attract the best talents in the industry, you state that. If you want to have aesthetically pleasing premium appeal of your facility spaces, I mean, write down your objectives. If it's efficiency and economy that you are driving for, you want to have a space that is very efficiently run, that is the cost per square meters is within a certain threshold. You set, in terms of maintenance and operation, you set those objectives. So you are using a vision of what your ideal facility will do for the organization, will be for the organization, the kind of impact to be making to set your facility objectives. So that's the first thing you do, because the facility objectives is what's going to guide everything else you do. Whether you're going to renovate, whether you're going to build or buy, whether you're going to do it in-house or outsource it, all of those things will come in later. So that's the first consideration. statement of facility objective. Let them not be too many. Let them not be too complex. An objective should be a single objective. A line item should be a single objective. It shouldn't be, we want to make the facility aesthetically pleasing and also efficiently managed and want to make it sustainable as one. No, each line item, because you want to be able to use these objectives to create key performance indicators that are going to go into metrics that you're going to be measuring for every site when the facility is in place, right? Then risk analysis of options. So this is basically if we're going to acquire a site, if we're going to acquire a facility today, right? What are the things we will consider? What are the things we will consider? Because there are some organizations that will tell you we don't rent. If we can't find a property to buy, we'll buy a land and build, right? So if you have such considerations and your preference is to buy a property, there must be certain risk analysis or certain conditions that property must meet in terms of the kind of locations we are looking for, the type of buildings we are looking for, the kind of area. You know, every area has its own zoning regulations where it says this area is residential, this area is retail or business area is, can be used for different things. What kind of zoning criteria are we considering for property we want to buy? What kind of utilities has to be around or within the property, and so on and so forth. We're analyzing just one of the options we're going to buy. If all the properties that are available in our chosen location or preferred area don't meet those analysis options, what do? We're falling back to the next one, which is to find a site and build. And if we're going to build, what kind of structures do we build? Are we building temporary structures, marquee tents? Are we building concrete structures, for life? Are we, whatever it is, there will be considerations. Now, these are high-level considerations. You also do sustainability analysis, so our impact on the environment in terms of energy, in terms of water, in terms of materials used, in terms of waste disposal and reuse, and so on and so forth. You list out sustainability considerations and say we will fall between this threshold and this threshold. Okay. For example, we want to have the ability to not put in more than 20% of our overall waste into landfill. We want to be able to recycle, reuse, 80% of solid waste from our site. We want to be able to treat and recycle and reuse our sewage so that we'll give out only less than 5% of sediments for other uses. And we're going to, so you're creating long-term goals, because if these things are not defined, one architect will design something for you somewhere, or one facility manager will, rent a building somewhere, and it is what you see, whatever is there is what you're going to take. Or an agent is trying to help you find a place to rent, because of course you have the option of renting if that's what you choose in the second option. And then you're getting to the building and you're like, oh, no, this is not going to help us achieve this goal and that objective. So it helps you have a big picture view of what kind of facility we can have, what kind of sustainability metrics we can have, what are the kind of energy sources we can look out for. Can we have a mix? Do we want to set targets for mix of renewable versus fossil fuels? Do we want to set targets for energy use per person, energy use per square meter, what we call energy use intensity as targets? So you are setting those targets, and this is as an organization. So the strategic plan really is not something that the FM should just sit down and write. No, it comes up with all of these ideas and it takes it up to senior management. Senior management will have to say, yeah, this really aligns with our corporate strategy and where the organization is going, and we would like to give back into this. It's eventually as adopted, approved by senior management, but the FM or the real estate manager, property manager, whatever nomenclature you have within the organization, somebody in charge of physical facilities should be able to come up with this, this guidebook that management will look into and say it really aligns with what we are looking for, right? Such are uses of funds. You also, have to mind that aspect. We organization have, how much of his annual revenue is typically spent on physical facilities, because organizations are not there just to spend all the money they have. They have to be a way of planning long term. Just like when we have a national budget or a state budget, and you're hearing things like, oh, we spend less than 10% on education, we spend less than 7% on health, and so on and so forth. Organizations should also have, this is the percentage of our revenue that we can part with for physical facilities related transactions, so that if you are developing a new site tomorrow and you are thinking about going high rise, build the 20-story or build just a 3 or 4 story, the trajectory of your organization is going to guide that decision. Because if you already have a strategic facility plan, these are the sources of funds. These are the expense to revenue ratio that we can adopt for facility capital spend or facility spending altogether. Then I have my decision cut out for me already. Okay, so an organization that is doing very well, income is coming in, and we have a strategic facility plan that says so percentage can go into physical facilities. I can see that money will be there to finish a 20-story high rise and lease, sublet, whatever I want to do with extra space. As far as I'm seeing that the organization is going bigger, and over time we're going to fill up the whole place. And now we have the money because of what the strategic facility plan that has been approved by management says, right? Then operating expenses analysis. So you need to set benchmarks for, so if we have so grades, buildings have grade A, grade B, grade C, grade D, like that, right? So if you have adopted any of the grades as what you are really working towards, what kind of operating expenses should you look at? Or you can create options from number 2 there, where you have if we have need for this grade, then our operating expenses should be this cost per square meter, or that range between this cost and that cost per square meter. And then the people that use the facility, you could also have the targets as to how much per person for delivering various type of FM services or aggregates FM services. And every property, every facility that you invest in, it's a financial investment. Nobody gets a building for free. Everything you see, it costs initial cost. It also costs of ongoing running costs. And because of that, you must have some financial metrics. These financial metrics are things that help guide go, no-go decisions. For example, they guide milestone or phased planning. For example, you want to build something that big. Can we build it in small phases? When we're in the 2nd or 3rd phase, how can we tidy up to be able to start using to start getting value at so and so stage, right? Now, in all of this, you have to have set long-term targets for return on investment. If something sounds lucrative, something that we should do, sounds okay that we should do it, and I look at the return on investment, so it's going to cost this amount, it's going to give us this amount per this period as return. Does it meet our targets, ROI? Does it meet? So whether it's ROI, whether it's net present value, internal rate of returns, payback period, these are financial analysis that I use to set benchmark, so that before you even take anything to management to say, can they approve this investment for this and that, you already have a guide. You already have something that's already there to say, if it is not within this threshold or this range, we will not accept it, right? So you need to work on your project plans or your capital plans or your future plans to ensure that the benchmark set on the strategic facility plan for returns for every investment, you are meeting it. Sometimes the FMs or the real estate team don't have this kind of documents, right? And so they see themselves coming up, oh, we want to buy a new generator, want to build a new house, want to rent, want to acquire this and acquire that. And management is looking at the returns for every money they spend. So should we give it to marketing? Marketing says if they get that money, they're going to increase our revenue by 20%. 20% means we're going to get, extra 2 billion, for example, as revenue. And we know how much of that is profit. So they can easily calculate when the other business units are giving them financial metrics. What about the FM? The FM says, give me that same amount so that I can use it to buy vehicles, for example, or use it to renovate the office and make the place more productive. How do I calculate return on investment, so that it can be compared with what other business units in the organization are giving? Because even when I finally get some wisdom to calculate my return on investment, I must make sure it meets the minimum threshold approved in the strategic facility plan. And then life cycle cost analysis, whole life cost analysis. The organization, we need to make decisions on, the kind of grades of materials we will use, the type of equipment we will install based on their life cycle, right? So what this means is that you have to have decisions already written in the strategic facility plan that you will do life cycle analysis for every acquisition you are going to make. What does that mean? Usually when you want to start a project, at the tactical level where you want to start something, we need to build a crèche or an FM building, or want to build a fire station, or want to build a mall, or whatever we want to build. There's usually that bring the money, right? Let's see what options are there in the market, all right? And when we are looking at those options, we are often tempted to go for the one that make the most sense financially, only based on the initial investment sum. That's not life cycle. That's not whole life cost. I can buy something cheap today, but how long is it going to last? Is the first question. And how much am I going to put into it on an ongoing basis for its lifespan? And what am I going to get in return for that asset investment, right? So if I take a decision as my organization, take a decision now on what our focus will be on life cycle, it will be easy. It should be easy for us to take decisions that we're not going to go for the lowest. Some organizations will tell you, it's lowest bidder, always lowest bidder, right? Or the lowest cost at the beginning. If you do that, you've not taken a long-term decision on life cycle approaches, then you may end up, getting your figures bumped on an ongoing basis, right? But again, if you already put it there as your policy that, we'll always go for the cheapest because time value of money means that we can always spend the higher money later, right? Put it there. Your strategic facility plan should be what drives. This is more like a policy book. Everything I'm touching on here is like a policy document or a procedural document, or some kind of strategic plan. Or how would I put it? Something management will enact as this is something that binds us in this organization. Then look at cost-benefit rating of alternatives and recommendations with clearly stated assumptions. So what you're basically doing in strategic facility plan is putting together what I call your property acquisition, use and disposal manual. Okay, this is going to go feed into every decision you take regarding property in your organization. So by the time we have an office in Lagos, and we want to probably set up a production facility in Abeokuta, right? So we look at the strategic facility plan and say, what kind of zone must it be? What are the options, risk analysis of options should we consider? What sustainability analysis, sources and use of funds. All of these have been predefined. We'll use them as guidelines to start, doing searches. Are we searching for property? Are we searching for land? We are guided. When we find options, we say, okay, fine, let's do our analysis. Let's compare the options. Let's use our financial metrics. Somebody should come up with a set of drawings and a bill of quantities. Let's see the final estimated cost. Let's look at the return on investment. Let's look at the kind of materials we're buying for the roof. What kind of materials? What are the alternatives? How long does this material last before it starts giving a problem? How long does this other one start? For the walls, what should we use? For the floors, what should we use? Should we paint over plastered surfaces, or should we screed it? What is the difference? What are the alternatives? Those are what we are looking at. We are looking at long-term decisions. They're all long-term. Everything strategic is long-term. But in this case, we are building a guide. So your strategic facility plan is like your guide, your master book, your playbook, your documents, your Bible that has all of the pointers to how you can make decisions. That's how it is. Now, if I now get to Abeokuta and I want to build that factory, that production facility, I now need to work on the facility master plan. That site will have a master plan. The master plan is a long-term plan for how I'm going to acquiring is answered by strategic facility plan, but develop that property, build it out, whether in phases or once, and then all the way to the operations and maintenance and even disposal. I have to create a long-term plan for that site. That master plan will be guided by my strategic facility plan, which means if I'm about making decisions about options, I look at what my strategic facility plan already says about that decision line item before I conclude on what I'm going to do for this master plan. So it is possible to have a site in Ikoyi and a site in Abeokuta having different features, but meeting the same requirements as spelled out in the strategic facility plan. So that's the key difference I want to draw out for you, so that when you are looking at a master plan, you're looking at one site, not the entire organization. The strategic facility plan is talking about the entire organization. Whatever we're going to do is going to be guided by this. Wherever we're going to do it, that is strategic facility plan. It's a long-term, high level. But then you have long-term, high level for one site. Okay, so this is where I'm looking at. Okay, take location for example, zoning, regulation, covenant assessments. What kind of buildings are we going to build? How does the zoning of that area, does our building purpose meet what that area zoning is for, right? So that has to be answered. So for this site, yes, we said this. Space standards, benchmark descriptions are talking about, you start with who's going to use facility, what are we going to be doing here, and who are going to be working here. For every function and for every individual, what kind of space should be allocated? Because it's not enough to say, let's build a 5,000 square meter facility. No, you build it up. You have to start with space standards. And that space standard look at the functions and the people, right? So you build it from first principles and you get to a point where you say, for this kind of work, for this kind of person, describe this kind of space. For this kind of work, for this kind of person, describe this kind of space in terms of size of space, services to be provided, everything to be provided, right? I create that into my guide. So when I'm going to have maybe space type 1, a junior officer, for example, how many junior officers are we going to have here? Oh, they're going to be 100. So 10 square meters with so and so utilities times 100. I'm building my overall scope already, right? We're going to have a chief operating officer sitting in this. What does the chief operating officer get? He gets an office of 30 square meter. He gets a conference room that can hold 15 people in meeting. That is another 40 square meter. He has, this and that amenities and services. He has a private toilet and so on. I've built that into. So I'm going to have one operations chief operations officer, this is requirement. I'm going to do that for all of the users, prospective users. Okay, and if it's an existing site, I'm going to develop it based on what is already existing, maybe with some modifications if we see areas that requires modification. So that fits into the program of space use, where you now have all of the spaces developed into a schedule, right? This space is for this space is for that, this person sits here, does this. And then you have workflow analysis. How will the site be developed? We're going to have a planning to brief, to design, to construction or contracting for construction, handing over, and so on and so forth. We discuss all of that in this plan. This is for one site. And then assessment and plan. So we're looking at engineering constraints, like maybe rocky areas, slopey areas, built up around you. How can you develop your own property when your crane cannot swing freely, for example, and so on and so forth. A lot of these considerations take place in the engineering assessment and plan. And then block fit or stacking plans. You are looking at, okay, so if it's a facility that is going to rise, right? We'll create a stacking plan for every floor. What units or department or individual is going to sit, how do they relate with each other? So we do this because we want to create a proper workflow for the organization, right? How do people relate? What kind of work do they do? How do they, so if somebody is in the reception, for example, is this a facility that people come in, we meet public, who meets the public? And if the public comes in at the reception, who are the departments that they are normally funneled to? Where should those departments sit, right? So that it will shorten the flow span for individuals coming into the organization. It doesn't tell well to have reception at the 5th floor. So people come into a lobby and take elevator to the 5th floor to get the reception that can direct them back to the ground floor, 1st floor when they need anything. So that's what we do. We will create a block fit or stacking plans. So whether it's stacking for high rise, block for horizontal, or fit, how various components interact and fit into each other. And this can lead us into the site plan itself, right? So you create a concept site plan. Vehicles coming like this, they park like this, all of this. At this stage, you'd have gotten your planners, your architects or designers, your engineers all working, because right now you are developing this one site. Okay, long-term maintenance plan, because that's something that's also very important. You don't once you've created the site, you need to consider some of those high-level long-term issues like maintainability, sustainability, operational readiness. For operational readiness, I'm looking at the flow of people, the activities, the efficiency in enabling them to get to what they want to do within that site. For maintainability, I'm looking at the flow of, for example, I want to separate the flow of maintenance and supply teams from the flow traffic of building users. Can I put an elevator somewhere? Can I have a different road or access for refuse bin trucks, and so on and so forth? I'm doing all of this because I want the plan to work. I don't need to start building before I start saying, oh, no, this has to come from this side, that has to come from that side. No, I have to also consider things like drainages. Where does the drainage flow towards? How high is the road? These are things that you hear engineers and architects talking about, but the FM should be involved. That's what we're saying here. Don't be a stranger to this planning, because you produce the strategic facility plan, which is the guideline for taking decisions on the facility master plan. So you must be part of it. You must be there to be understanding what is being considered. If we have sewage, where will it when we treat our sewage, where will it flow through? Even if we don't want to treat it, for example, we are allowed by law to evacuate and go and dispose it in a government facility. Where would the truck, stand to do the evacuation? How far can it come? Which direction can it take? Where are we going to site our generators, our powerhouses, considering the noise and the soot and the smoke that might be coming out of them? Where should they be located? Our air conditioning system, all those site utilities, where are they going to be located in the site? How is the location going to affect how they will be maintained? And how is it going to affect the aesthetic appeal of people coming to use our facility? I'm having all of these considerations because I want a site that works. I want a site that is functional. Okay. There are so many things that goes into this concept site plan or campus plan, because you want to have a clear picture. Sometimes you have created this perfect site plan, but you don't have the money to build everything. You don't have the money to build everything. So you start saying, okay, so how do we build a path, start using it, and what can we build to start using it? Should we make it a temporary structure that we can start using on the site while other developments are going on? Or should we build a foundation for the real thing, right? Should we have, this is how it's supposed to sit? And then based on that, begin to build layer upon layer, which means we do a front-end investment in that foundation, which all the piling and all of the reinforcements that needs to happen. So I'm looking at the site plan holistically. I'm also looking at it with the mindset of what can we start with that we can now add to, with time as we move on. In developing the site plan, you won't forget considerations of sustainability. You won't forget, all the other things that we have talked about in the strategic facility plan conversation we had a minute ago. Okay, so once the site plan is done, we say, okay, let's start looking at how should our facility look, right? Architectural image concept. You develop image for both internal and external. The facility has to have a certain appeal. And by the way, we've had some objectives outlined during the strategic facility planning process, where we've set out certain objectives. When we are doing our site plan or anything we are doing on this master plan, we must not forget what the objectives are. We must keep them in sight. What should the facility look like? We're trying to define that. So we can have two facilities that look differently, but they both meet the same facility objective in terms of being physically pleasing to the eyes or appealing to whoever is looking at it, that can endear anyone that sees our facility to our organization and our products. So you put all of that into the plan, and then you look at the floor layouts. Here we are still going to bring back the workflow analysis. Look at how units, individuals interface and interact with each other. So when you're developing the architectural image concepts that leads into the architectural plans that are eventually blown out into design drawings and conceptual drawings, what you are doing is ensuring that things have moved from a bubble to single line to more rigid lines, but all spaces already created in the space schedule that we talked about when we developed the space standards and the program of space use are accounted for in the architectural designs. And then you start asking yourself, how are we going to run this place? It's not going to be built and that's it. No. It's going to be built and managed for the foreseeable future, right? So what kind of maintenance program can we have in place? And this is very important because, we build, and after we have finished building, it's when we are using it, we now start remembering that, we didn't provide for a changing room for workers, for example, or we didn't provide for, toilets, outside or external toilets for people who are going to be in the grounds doing one thing or the other. We didn't provide for, a room for tea girls to prepare tea and coffee and send around to the office. And a lot of things start popping up at that time. That's because we didn't look deep into the services and the utilities that will be provided to the people who are going to use the facility. Here, we mustn't miss it out, right? So if we are thinking about a way to operate, how long will certain assets or equipment or utilities run for, and who will man them? What kind of people are we going to have to man them? What kind of assets are we even thinking of bringing into this facility? What kind of maintenance activities are we supposed to expect? These things we can be doing while the facility is still running, or are these things that will be done at night? So, for example, you have a maintenance program that requires certain activities to be done at night. Then you have to provide some kind of lighting that would aid that maintenance activity. So we plan all this into the maintenance plan, long-term maintenance plan. We look at every component of the facility and decide on what the maintenance strategy will be right at this strategic planning phase, the master plan planning. And then we look at estimates. Okay, so this is where cost comes in, the bill of quantities. And again, when looking at estimates, we are looking back at strategic facility plan to say, based on these estimates, what are the financial metrics? What are the return on investment if we go this approach? What's the internal rate of returns, for example, if we go this approach? If we are not going to meet that threshold based on what we expect as returns, why don't we change the material to this other one? But if we change to this other material, what is the lifespan? What is the expected useful life of that material? How does that now feed into our financial metrics again? So you keep doing all of these considerations on an ongoing basis until you meet the requirements of the strategic facility plan. And then you have your project laid out. This is the cost that's going to go into it. Do we have the money at once? Yes, we build it at once. So the next 2 years, project management plans are laid out, and controllers are working, they're being paid, and the job is being done. But sometimes we plan it based on the fact that if we are doing this job for 4 years, we can be getting the money for every year's work based on our current and projected cash flow. So what work can we do in year one? What work can we do in year two, so that the money that we have will be enough and yet still make the place functional and useful for us? So we create several projects that will fit into the funding. Also fit into our requirement, because you want to spend the whole money building and developing the landscaping first when you need an extra space to expand into. I'd rather leave the landscaping as the next phase while I deliver on the civil works or the structure itself, so that I have a space that people can easily retrofit or fit out and move into. So in essence, I'm dealing with one side. I'm not going to wait until the building is built. I'm not going to say, oh, well, if I have fantastic ideas, architects and engineers, go ahead and build. No, I want to be involved in the process. And that's what we're doing, facility master planning. All right, so that's going to be our discussion for today. I wanted to just keep it to these two outcomes, two outputs. I want us to take them as seriously as they are. Not up to 5% of FMs will advance in their career to the level where strategic facility planning is being done. But if you already know it, there's a high likelihood that you would advance to the position where you'll be required to do strategic facility planning, because it becomes easier and easier for you to speak strategically, to write and do your business cases, even for tactical things with strategic mindset, that you begin to develop a strategic facility plan even before you are made the boss. You start having those kind of inputs that can lead your organization to be more proactive in how it generates revenue and spend those monies and get results for it, because you have learned strategic facility planning. All right. Question time now. So if you put your questions on the WhatsApp group, the facility management training WhatsApp, we had a bit of a technical issue with our Telegram platform. Somehow it seemed to have been hijacked while we were right on with our training last of our training last week, and ever since then it's been difficult recovering. So today I'll be taking your questions on WhatsApp. If you are not on the facility management training WhatsApp platform, I would ask that the team drop a link. Can you drop a link on all our platform and on this chat now, so that those who are not on the WhatsApp platform can just click on the link. All right, so the FM Diploma, somebody asked a question. The FM Diploma prize, 450,000 for the physical. It's actually 499 now, because that's the price it's listed for the physical class, but you can still get it for 350 by tomorrow, till tomorrow. And the virtual class is 399. You can still get it for 250,000 till tomorrow. After tomorrow, registrations will now be focused on the January class. And to be able to join the January class at the old price of 350 for the physical and the virtual, no, 450 for the physical and 350 for the virtual, you would have started paying instrumentally towards that class from now, so that we'll see that you've already done up to 50% of your payments before November 30th, and will allow you balance up based on the old price of 450 instead of 499 for physical, 350 instead of 399 for virtual. Okay. In terms of the schedule for the classes, we have virtual classes 2 hours 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 5 to 7 p.m. We now have the physical class on Saturday by 10 a.m. Closes at 4 p.m. So what that means is that we have a 6-hour program during the week, 3 times of 2 hours, and we have a 6-hour program on Saturday. All those who pay for the virtual class, who pay the 450,000, or as we're offering you now, 350,000 till tomorrow, are able to join all of the virtual classes, so you can have double reinforcement of what you're learning. Okay, but those who pay for the virtual will be purely on the virtual. But we have a learning management portal that everybody are there together at the same time, where all the content is arranged and delivered properly, and you can access the videos, you can access the slides, you can access the quizzes and other items that we have saved for you there. Okay. In the absence of any other question, I would like to say thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing you again next Thursday. It's going to be weekly. We'll try and make it work every week. So stay tuned and remain blessed. Bye-bye.